Hi everyone, so in this video, I'm putting together a week in my project life album. So as you know, I typically do weekly spreads, but for this one, I actually am just doing a long weekend. I'm kind of flexible with my dates because I don't number my weeks. I just put the date range on the top title card. And for this long weekend, we went to Vermont. So I collected a ton of stuff on that trip, which I have in here, and I'm not going to pull it all out right now, but I've just got a lot of bits and pieces that I collected while we were on that vacation that I want to include in an album. And I decided I'm going to make a mini album for this trip. I picked up this Life Crafted album from Citrus Twist and decided I'm going to use that because I picked up this amazing Vermont, Greetings from Vermont postcard. And this is going to be my title page in this mini album. But I'm not ready to put together that mini album yet. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to use Ali Edwards' travel collection from 2021 in that album or if I'm going to wait for something in the future. Right now, I have that collection here. If you took the start to finish to travel class from Ali Edwards, I contributed a lesson to that class where I used this collection to put together a album detailing 6 annual vacations to Cape Cod. So what I'm working with today are the leftovers from that, which I have here. So I just have a few of the cards left. I'm just gonna kind of go through these. So I love this one and I'm going to use this as my title card here. And then I don't think that this card is going to work because we didn't leave the country. I think that that one I'm gonna save. I do think that this would be a great one and this one. So I did collect a lot of ephemera. A lot of that I'm going to leave for my mini album, but I'm going to pull some out for this as well. And I think that this would be good for an overview of what we did. Because I'm doing a separate mini album, I don't feel the need to do a lot of detailed journaling on this spread. I just want to kind of include it in here. Now, we didn't fly anywhere. Maybe I'll include that. I'm not sure yet. Again, that's like more international travel. That seems too specific. I don't really have a story for it, and we didn't ride bikes. So I think I'm not going to use any of these cards. I might use this as a filler card. I'm not sure yet. I also have this that I cropped from. So I have a second one of these, which I don't want to cut into this one, but I cut part off of this one in my mini album, and I was thinking I could use this as an embellishment here, but it's a little too wide for 3x4 and a little too short for 4x6. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with that. I also have, you know, a lot of these stickers, a lot of chipboard pieces. So I'm just kind of going through and seeing what I have here. I have these wood veneer pieces, a lot of the circles left. These, I think I want to maybe use those in like a mini album, these patches. So I have already used this collection to do that Cape Cod 6x8 album that's in that start to finish travel class, and to put together a Cape Cod traveler's notebook on the road. So I've picked through it quite a bit. I also have these pieces left that are up here. So there's not a ton left to work with, but there's plenty to put together this spread. So what I'm going to do now that I've gone through my cards is I'm going to go over to my computer and print out photos, and then I'm going to pop back on here and put together this page.
So the first thing I did was I went over to my computer and I pulled up all my photos from this trip and printed ones to fit into this page. So I took way more photos than can reasonably fit in this spread. So I just tried to find some photos that kind of represented all of the different pieces of our trip, showed all of the people, and kind of showed an overview of the colors of the trip. I didn't spend too much time really getting like the perfect photos because I am going to create a mini album, and I know that all my other favorite photos are going to end up in there. So this was just to kind of get an overview of everything that we did on this trip. I did have in mind that I wanted to include a few of these horizontal photos that I absolutely loved on the trip. So that one right there with the beads, I had edited that in Photoshop to add some additional white space at the top there. And I did that on purpose, and you'll see because I wanted to do some stamping on that photo. The You Are Loved photo was one of my favorite ones from the vacation, so I knew I wanted to put that right at the top there, and I'm also going to do some stamping on that. So I'm rearranging all of the photos and kind of figuring out where they'll go. And I realized I printed one too many 4x6 photos rather than 3x4. So I just cropped it down and put it there. And then I took off that filler card because I thought it was too dark next to all of the dark photos. And I wanted to instead include some of this pattern paper here that is a lighter shade. I decided I'm going to use these wood veneer pieces as my primary embellishment across the spread because I didn't use them at all in my Cape Cod album. So I had a lot of them and they are just so cute. So I'm just kind of going through them and kind of figuring out where they fit on my photos. I don't want to do too many of them without, something else, but I like them kind of as an accent. So I just chose a few to kind of start off. And then cropping down this paper that was in my scraps drawer. And this piece I cut off says, "Hello, friend," because we met up with a friend and that's what that photo was there. So I was thinking, I could maybe put something about that. I end up not using that, but it works out fine. So this is my binder here where I have all of my stamps, and I knew I wanted to do some alpha stamping, so I'm using that resource guide to figure out what stamps I want to use. I originally thought I wanted to use those two from Ali Edwards. There's a 4x6 and a 6x8 of the same font because I thought it'd be fun to mix the two sizes, but I decided the large one was just too large for this spread. So I'm going with this one right here, and I'm stamping out Burlington across here. So this photo I took in a shop that when we did some shopping in Burlington of all of these beads, and the photo itself was the wrong dimensions to print 4x6. So what I did, instead of cropping off some of the beads, was I just added some white space at the top of the canvas in Photoshop Elements so I would have space for my stamping. And when I do something like that, I want to repeat that element throughout the spread of more than once. So I am going to find 2 other places to bring that same stamping in. But I'm not going to do it quite yet. I pulled out that patch to include on that filler there because I decided I didn't really want to add anything else on there. I'm going to put all my journaling on this Moments to Remember card. Like I said in the intro portion, I'm creating a separate album, and that's where the bulk of my journaling is going to be. I also took an art journal on the road, and I was able to journal a lot in that. So I have a lot of journaling stored. I just needed to kind of do some highlights for this spread. And that way I was able to devote as many pockets as possible to photos, which I just thought was more fun. So using this card was a great way to just kind of do 5 highlights from the trip. And I just kind of journaled on here, looking through my journal that I brought on the road to kind of get an idea of the stories I wanted to tell. And I just kind of journaled them on there, but you can see those last 2 only took up 1 line, and I didn't like the way that looked. So I went back and added in just a few more details for each of those stories. So I could have it fill in 2 lines. Then I decided I'm going to work on that ephemera card next. You can't quite see it right now. It's off the top of the page. It has those 6 spots for ephemera. So I'm going through my pouch of ephemera here and kind of selecting what I want to include. Those spots are pretty small, so I'm looking for things that are small. I also am keeping in mind that I'm making that 4x8 album, so I'm saving things that I think will work well in that album. And I'm especially using things that I have duplicates of, like that Church Street flyer. Somehow I picked up 2, so that's perfect to save 1 for my mini album and use 1 here. So I ended up with 5 things, which is fine. And I'm just going to crop them down to fit in these spots. So I pulled out my ruler to figure out the dimensions. And my idea was to crop them so they're a little bit smaller so that there's just like a little bit of the white space around them. So I'm just doing that and cropping them down. And with these being such small spots, I knew some of the text was going to get cropped off. I still think it's just super fun to kind of just get pieces of what you collected for this card. So it's one of the reasons I absolutely love this card. I'm so thankful I have the digital version because I'm probably going to print that and use it in my project life again for these other weekend road trips like this where I collect a ton of ephemera. And it's a good way to kind of use up the scraps of ephemera. So if I had created my album first, my mini album first, I would have been able to save the scraps and just kind of use those for this card. But because I decided to do this spread first, I had to do it this way. So I arranged them on here, and they're not in any like chronological order or anything. I just kind of chose to do them so that the different colors were like the two black ones weren't next to each other. And then I left that center bottom one empty and decided I'm going to put a piece of chipboard on there. I used a ton of the chipboard in my mini album, so I hadn't really planned on using much on the spread, but chipboard is just one of my favorites. So I pulled this one that just says open roads, deep breaths, stillness, repeat, which I thought was perfect for just kind of this little road trip that we went on, and it fit perfectly in that spot right there. So next I'm going to work on this card. So you can see here I printed this photo as a smaller square rather than the full pocket, and I like to do that when I have a lot of photos to include because it kind of breaks up the spread and gives space for your eye to rest rather than having just solid photos in all of the pockets. And then it also gave me a spot to do a little more journaling or stamping here so that I could repeat that element on my page. So I stamped out the word cousins because we visited my husband's cousin, and these are all of the kids, so they're technically second cousins, posing for a photo. And I wanted to put one of those little flags on the top there, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't get it to look right, even though I thought it should fit. So I just stuck with the wood veneer pieces. So on this one, I decided to do some stamping as well. Because this is about our trip to Vermont, I wanted to put the word Vermont on here, and I thought this would be perfect to stamp out Hello Vermont, because my title card is that globe card is so gorgeous. I didn't want to add a large title on top of it. And you can see I stamped from the left and then the right there because that I didn't know exactly how much space to leave between the two words. And this way, that space between the two words ended up being the largest gap between letters. So I decided the wood veneer pieces by themselves, while they look great on the 3x4 photos, I felt like it needed something else on the 4x6 ones. So I pulled out some of these circles from the, I think it was one of the add-ons from the travel collection, and decided to kind of layer them with the wood veneer pieces on 3 of the photos. Again, repeating that same style of embellishment cluster on 3 photos rather than just doing it once so that the whole spread kind of ties together. So I pulled all of these cards down at once so I could kind of work on how I was going to put them here. So the circles are transparent. So you don't want to put adhesive behind them because you'll see it through. But what I did was I added the adhesive behind where the wood veneer piece was going to go, so I knew that it wouldn't show. But for these two, there's a lot more of the circle showing than that one with the heart. And so I decided to take them over to my sewing machine and add just a little bit of stitching to kind of hold them down. Not that they needed it because I did adhere them, but it just added a little bit of extra texture, and I just like the way that it looks. And then I adhered the wood veneer pieces. You could see on that one there was text on the circle, but the wood veneer covered it up. And I think it actually said something very similar to the wood veneer piece. I just liked the style of the layering. And then I added that geotag on the getaway one. So I was just kind of fixing the dates on that sticky note there. But my last thing to do on this spread is add the dates on this title card. This card is so gorgeous. I didn't really want to add anything to it, but I pulled out these label stickers that came in an old one little word mini kit, and I have been hoarding these. I love them so much, and if Allie added those to her shop, I would buy 1,000,000 packs because they are the best thing ever, especially for these title cards. So I just put that there, and then I'm just laying everything out and calling it done. Thanks for watching.